Hey gang, and welcome back. This week we've got another gameplay lined up just for you. This week I'm playing my Titania Protector of Argoth deck, Marc-Alexandre is playing his Kami of the Crescent Moon deck, Kevin is playing his Breya Ethereum Shaper deck, and Matt is playing his Samut Voice of Dissent deck. For openers, I keep Zurin Orb, Natural Affinity because what's an opener without it, Tilling Treefolk, Ghost Quarter, 2 Snow-Covered Forests, and Nature's Claim. Matt keeps an opener with a Mountain, Mana Confluence, Homeward Path, Forest, Selfless Spirit, and Savannah. Kevin's opener had Wooded Foothills, Junk Diver, Cascade Bluffs, Command Tower, Chromatic Lantern, Blood Crypt, and Acquire. Finally, Marc-Alexandre keeps a hand with Evacuation, 2 Snow-Covered Islands, Thespian Stage, Mindbreak Trap, Planar Portal, and Sky Diamond. Matt wins the die roll and starts us off. The first land of the game is a Mountain, and Matt passes to Kevin. Kevin plays Blood Crypt tap, not wanting to take 2 on turn 1 for nothing, and passes to me. I play a Snow-Covered Forest and pass to Mark. Mark plays a Snow-Covered Island and passes to Matt. Matt plays a Savannah first turn and passes to Kevin. Kevin plays Command Tower for his land drop and casts Vidalcan Engineer before passing to me. I play a Snow-Covered Forest and pass to Mark. Mark plays a Snow-Covered Island and casts his General, Kami of the Crescent Moon, before passing to Matt. Just to speed things up so I don't have to say it every turn, as long as Kami's on the field, everyone does remember to draw 2 cards. Matt plays a Forest first turn and casts Serra Ascendant before passing to Kevin. Kevin explodes a bit on his turn and he plays Cascade Bluffs, then taps it and the Engineer to cast Chromatic Lantern. He then in turn taps the Lantern and a land to cast Time Sieve before passing to me. For my turn I play Evolving Wilds and pass to Mark. Mark plays a Snow-Covered Island and casts Trinket Mage to go find his copy of Soul Ring. Matt draws his second card for turn, and whatever it is, he's super happy about it. He plays Mana Confluence and then casts Selfless Spirit before moving to combat. Matt decides to swing the Ascendant at Kevin, and Kevin responds by casting Swords to Plowshares on the Ascendant. Matt responds to this and casts Heroic Intervention, giving all of his creatures hexproof and indestructible. With his removal fizzling, Kevin takes 6 and Matt gains 6. With nothing else, he passes to Kevin. Kevin plays Wooded Foothills for his turn, and thanks to Chromatic Lantern, he's able to tap it for mana, and he does so to cast his commander, Breya Ethereum Shaper. For my turn, I play Ghost Quarter, and then cast Tilling Treefolk to return the Evolving Wilds that I had previously cracked to find a Snow-Covered Forest. Unfortunately, this gives me too many cards in hand, and I have to discard 2 at the end of my turn. For Mark's turn, Mirror Pool enters the battlefield, a card that I feel is criminally underplayed. He then ramps like crazy, casting Soul Ring, Thrawn Dynamo, and Sky Diamond before passing to Matt. Matt plays Homeward Path and then taps out, taking 1 from Mana Confluence to cast Xenagos, God of Revels. Moving to combat, Serra Ascendant gets +X/+X where X is his power, and smashes into Mark for 12, gaining Matt 12. Kevin plays Windswept Heath for his land and casts Acquire, targeting Matt. Kevin finds Matt's copy of Conqueror's Flail and puts it onto the battlefield. Kevin then equips the flail onto Breya and passes to me. For my turn, I play a Snow-Covered Forest, cast Elvish Mystic, and then cast Nisa's Pilgrimage, finding a forest and putting a forest into my hand. Moving to combat, Tilling Treefolk goes into the red zone, smashing into Matt for 1. With nothing else, I pass to Mark. Mark's turn has him playing a non-matching Snow-Covered Island, for shame Mark, and moves to combat, swinging his Kami and Trinket Mage into Matt for 3. Leaving all his mana up, Mark passes to Matt. Matt plays Exotic Orchard for his land drop, and moves straight to combat, swinging Serra Ascendant that's been pumped by Xenagos at Mark again. Mark responds by casting Evacuation to bounce all creatures back to their owner's hands. Kevin responds by using Time Sieve to sacrifice 5 artifacts and take an extra turn. During Matt's second main phase, he recasts Serra Ascendant and drops Iroas, God of Victory, before passing to Kevin. In response to Matt's end of turn, I cast Nature's Claim on Kevin's Time Sieve, giving him 4 life but destroying the troublesome artifact. Kevin starts his first extra turn by recasting Vidalcan Engineer, and then cracks both of his fetch lands to find a Plains and a Mountain. Kevin then tries to cast Daretti, but Mark says no, counterspelling it, and Kevin moves to his second turn. Kevin's second turn is much faster than his first, and he plays a Mountain, recasts Breya, and passes to me. For my turn, I play Terramorphic Expanse and cast Titania, Protector of Argoth. In response to her trigger returning Evolving Wilds from my graveyard to the field, I crack Terramorphic Expanse, getting a 5/3 elemental and finding a Snow-Covered Forest from my library. After Matt kindly provides me with the tokens, I recast Elvish Mystic, I crack Evolving Wilds to find a Snow-Covered Forest and get another 5/3 elemental. For Mark's turn, he plays a Snow-Covered Island, then recasts Kami the Crescent Moon and Trinket Mage. Trinket Mage in turn finds Mana Vault, which Mark then casts, tapping Mirror Pool to pay for the 1 colorless mana. With nothing else, he passes to Matt. Matt plays a Bloodstained Mire for his turn, and then his first main phase casts Selfless Spirit. Moving to combat, Xenagos triggers and Serra Ascendant gets +6/+6 before smashing into Kevin. Kevin plays an island and then casts Junk Diver before passing to me. During my turn, I play a snow-covered forest, and I move to cast Sylvan Safekeeper, but Mark says no and dissolves it. Using the Scry, Mark decides to keep the card on top of his library. Thankfully, I have backup in the form of Zurin Orb. I then cast Woodland Bellower, which allows me to find Tireless Tracker. Moving to combat, Titania and her 2 elemental buddies swing into Matt for 15. With nothing else, I pass to Mark. For Mark's turn, his first main phase has him casting Extraplanar Lens on his snow-covered island. With his islands now tapping for 2, he only has to tap 3 islands to cast Planar Portal. He then activates the portal to find a card and put it into his hand. Mark shows us Bribery, which he doesn't actually have to do, but he's going to cast it anyway, so it's not a big deal. He chooses to target Matt for Bribery and finds Elish Norn, putting her onto the field under his control. And Mark moves to combat, swinging his Commander and Trinket Mage at me for 7. At the end of Mark's turn, Matt takes the opportunity to flash in Samut, Voice of Dissent. Matt plays Slayer's Stronghold for his land drop and casts Sensei's Divining Top. Before combat, he activates Slayer's Stronghold to give his general +2/+0 Vigilance and Haste. Moving to combat, he chooses to have Xenagos' trigger go on Samut and proceeds to swing everything at Mark. Boldly, Mark chooses not to block and instead takes 16 damage. With nothing else, Matt passes to Kevin. Kevin starts off his turn by playing an island, and he pays 6 to cast Shroom, who brings back Chromatic Lantern. He then recasts Time Sieve, which he had returned thanks to Junk Diver dying, and passes to me. At the end of Kevin's turn, I sacrifice 3 lands to Zurin Orb, gaining 6 life and 3 5/3 elementals who are unfortunately 3/1s thanks to Elish Norn. During my first main phase, I play a snow-covered forest and move to combat, swinging everything at Matt. Matt chooses to block one of the elemental tokens with Samut and only takes 16 damage. During my second main phase, I recast Tilling Treefolk, returning some lands to my hand, and I use Beast Within to destroy Mark's Planar Portal. As Mark is untapping, Matt finally sees that he could have homeward pathed Elish Norn to get her back on his side, and Kevin releases all of his frustration as he'd seen that since Mark-Alexandre stole him. Matt doesn't activate it yet though, and instead allows Mark to proceed with his turn. During his first main phase, Mark taps 1 island and delves away his graveyard to cast Treasure Cruise. In response, he sacrifices Mirrorpool to copy the spell. Mark then plays an island and casts Glenelendra Archmage as counterspell backup. In response, Matt casts Congregation at Dawn to find 3 creatures and put them on top of his library. He finds Odric, Lunarch Marshal, Gisela, Blade of the Gold Knight, and Aurelia, the War Leader. Mark continues to play his turn and he casts Back to Basics and Grim Monolith before passing to Matt. Back to Basics severely hampers how many lands Matt gets to untap, and he goes one step further, tapping Homeward Path to get Elish Norn back. He then pays 2 life to have Stomping Ground come into play untapped, and he moves to cast Combat Celebrant, but Mark says no and uses Mindbreak Trap to stop it. Matt then moves to combat and puts Xenagos' trigger on Samut, giving her +5/+5. Moving to combat, he swings Elish Norn at Kevin for 4, and the rest go at me. As all of his creatures need to be blocked by 2 thanks to Iroas, I don't want to sacrifice all of my lands just to survive, so I take the full 37, 20 of which is commander damage to the face. His combat step over, Matt passes to Kevin. Kevin isn't as affected as Matt was and gets to untap all but 2 of his lands. Kevin then proceeds to cast Skull Clamp, Baleful Strix, who immediately dies to Elish Norn but still draws Kevin a card, and Felwar Stone. He then sacrifices all of his remaining artifacts except for Skull Clamp to take an extra turn thanks to Time Sieve. Kevin starts his extra turn by playing a Polluted Delta, and cracks the fetch land, taking 1 to find a swamp. He then casts Open the Vault, which brings back a bunch of his creatures who unfortunately die again to Elish Norn. He still gets to draw off of Baleful Strix, however. Kevin then reshapes his Skull Clamp to become a Soul Ring. And with just enough artifacts, he's able to sacrifice Time Sieve again to take an extra turn. During Kevin's third turn, he plays Hollowed Fountain untapped, taking 2, and casts Voltaic Key. He finishes off his turn by casting Thopter Assembly and passing to me. For my turn, I play a Snow-Covered Forest, and I go straight to combat, swinging my Elemental tokens and Woodland Bellower at Matt. Samut stops the Woodland Bellower, and Elish Norn takes care of one of the Elemental tokens, and as a result, Matt only takes 9. During my second main phase, I use Zurin Orb to sacrifice one of my lands, gaining 2 life and a 5/3 Elemental. With nothing else, I pass to Mark. On his upkeep, Mark takes 1 as Mana Vault is tapped, and during his main phase, plays a Snow-Covered Island. He then casts Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, to draw 4 cards and hopefully find an answer to Matt. Mark then casts Cage Sun, naming blue, and passes to Matt. During Matt's turn, he has the arduous task of untapping 2 lands, and he moves to his first main phase. He casts Avacyn's Pilgrim and Birds of Paradise, but I quickly correct him because I don't want any mistakes in my YouTube videos. Matt then moves to equip Conqueror's Flail onto Samut, but Mark flashes in Void Mage Husher, who counters the activated ability, and then dies. Moving to his combat step, Xenagos activates on Sarah's Ascendant, giving it +6/+6, and Matt is able to kill Mark and Kevin at the same time. Knowing fully well that I can't kill Matt because of the huge life difference, not to mention that Elish Norn is making all of my creatures much smaller than I need them to be, I scoop it up and we move to another game. Game review time. This is probably one of the few games where I've played Titania and I haven't cast Natural Affinity. I think I tunnel vision pretty hard whenever I see it, and I usually snap keep any opener with it, which is probably not the best. Mark's Kami deck is actually a pretty dedicated combo deck, but he was playing it quite softly. It can easily generate infinite turns and basically draw himself out or find whatever he needs to win the game. Kevin took like 5 extra turns with Breya and he still wasn't able to get a win, which is pretty surprising considering usually that's enough to get him there. None of us were able to find a board wipe, however, and this was a huge problem as Matt was able to just go to town with Sarah Ascendant from very early on. I like Samut as she gives all of your creatures haste, is a very strong creature on her own, and has an interesting ability with the untap. Please be sure to tune in every Monday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video, with a second video popping up sometime during the week. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta, or check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/MTGMudsta. This video is brought to you in part by support from my Patreons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below or in the About section. You can also visit FlipsideGaming.com, who I've recently started an affiliated sponsorship with. If you enter the promo code MTGMudsta, as seen below in all caps, on orders over $10, you'll get 10% off and help out the channel. Their 2 locations host EDH nights, with Clifton Park being on Mondays and East Greenbush being on Wednesdays. As always, thank you guys for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.